welcome back, everybody. Today, I'm talking with Kelly Will about the HR organization of the future. So let's start by looking at a framework that we can use to talk about the future of HR. Kelly, what did you bring with you today to help us do that?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. The framework I brought is around 4 pillars. And the way I see it, HR service delivery is really built on these 4 foundational pillars around people, process, technology, and governance. And the pillars all work together to kind of hold up the HR service delivery model. We expect to see each of these pillars evolve for the HR organization of the future to really enable the HR organization to adapt to the new external environment and better meet customer needs. So as I assess priorities for our HR org of the future, I really see 2 overarching themes emerging. The first is just around optimizing the employee experience. We've been talking about that, and I think that's going to remain a critical top priority for HR. And the need for this has even been accelerated by the current environment. And then the second overarching theme is around agile. Agile has really just become kind of word of the day for HR, and all over the place, HR is really striving to embrace more agile ways of working to be able to become more nimble and more quickly adapt to customer needs.
Okay, so how do those 2 themes align to the pillars here? And should I read anything at all into the different sort order or the order that they appear in?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, when I think about those themes, 2 kind of groupings naturally emerge with the pillars. And so at the center, we have the process and technology pillars, and those can really be used to create a strong core for addressing the employee experience. And then the people and governance pillars kind of wrap around the outside and help to propel the organization toward becoming more flexible and agile. So I think it's easiest if maybe we talk about them in those 2 groupings and hit on some of the trends we expect to see in each pillar.
Okay, so let me flip the slide and let's start with the middle 2 as you suggested.
Sounds good. So from a process perspective, I'll start there. And the conversation and narrative has really been around having customer empathy. So, companies have been playing with things like design thinking and journey mapping and using some of those techniques for a while now, with the idea of really working to design customer-centric processes and a continued emphasis on designing end-to-end processes that really link to those moments that matter for their employees. And I think that end-to-end process design remains key, and it's going to be increasingly important to make some of those cross-functional process connections for customers and employees as we think about returning employees to the office.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and technology plays a role here too. So, companies more and more are starting to use the tools at their disposal to kind of embed nudge content, where they can kind of embed gentle reminders into the tools at a certain point in the process to help make the process more intuitive and prompt employees to take action that's needed within a process.
Yeah. So let's talk about technology. I hope it doesn't start doing like your Apple Watch and telling you when to breathe. Stand up.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be as over the top as that necessarily, though. I do get those breathe reminders, though. But yeah, from a technology perspective, there just continues to be buzz around the experience applications, and I don't think that's going to stop. We're seeing companies explore experience suites like the ServiceNows, the Salesforce, as ways to really put kind of a layer on and close some of the experience gaps that they might be feeling with the HCM solutions that they've deployed. And we're also even seeing those HCM vendors themselves working to address some of these gaps. So, I know leading vendors like Oracle and Workday are bringing forward solutions now. So we've seen, Oracle with the HR Service Center and Digital Assistant, or Workday rolling out their Workday Assistant and People Experience to try to kind of meet that market need for their customers.
Okay, so that's actually on the roadmaps now for some of them.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the other technology components for our HR org of the future are going to definitely include a broadening of some of the multi-channel access. So companies are going to be moving beyond traditional email, voice, and chat. And their strategy is really going to include more mobile, more RPA, more AI, And some of these newer access channels, or that feel newer right now, around text, chatbots, virtual assistants, are really going to be quickly becoming standard for, HR service centers. I think you and I've even seen some companies start to talk about, migrating from phone as a channel altogether, right? And just embracing some of the newer things that are out there.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the other priority that's still high for HR leaders and technology vendors alike is around data and analytics. So much like what we were seeing from a process perspective, again, that cross-functional need is going to come through here. So there's going to be a need and a greater ability, I think, to connect data cross-functionally to deliver really valuable analytics to the business. I think, as we continue to see adoption of cloud ERP solutions and finance kind of going to the cloud, the way HR has been going to the cloud, HR and finance will even have more data at their disposal and really have some opportunities to make great strides around analytics.
Isn't that funny? The analytics and decision making seems to be like that holy grail that we just never quite get to, right?
Yeah, it just remains in the conversation.
That's right. Well, that's a lot to think about just on those two pillars. And I do know that you've just pulled together a blog talking more about these items, these two core items. So if anyone wants to read more, you ought to be able to find that posted on our website and in the LinkedIn community. I'll put it there in our Digital HR Connections community as well. So why don't we move on to the outside pillars that you talked about, which were people and governance, I think. Here we go.
Is correct. Yes. Yeah. So people and governance, like I said, I think they kind of wrap around, and that's where you can really make some impact in getting the move toward agile. So, from a people perspective, one of the ways we expect organizations to start infusing agile into their HR operating model is by creating these agile resource pools. The idea there is kind of a grouping of HR business partners that can, address targeted opportunities that sort of lend themselves to that agile iterative approach. So, these resource pools are going to be made up of HR professionals who, it's not necessarily about deep subject matter expertise in one area or another, but more about, really being skilled in those agile ways of operating so that they can move around and apply those skills to different projects, different processes, both within HR or kind of, again, across the functional areas. So you might be thinking, does HR have these kind of resources, right?
Right, for sure.
Yeah. The HR doesn't necessarily have these resources at the ready. So, I think successful, effective formulation of these resource pools, as well as, being able to adapt and deal with the influx of some of the new technologies and additional automation is going to necessitate some reskilling in HR. And we know it on the slide, it's reskilling, it's not just renaming, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nod to maybe some of the past conversations that we've had with our clients around strategic HR business partners. And we've seen companies say, well, let's take these generalists and we'll call them strategic HR business partners and they'll figure out how to do it. I think it's not just a renaming or a rebranding for these roles, right?
Yeah, you don't get more strategic just by renaming yourself to strategic something.
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately not.
I also bet we're going to find some of these pooled resources for agile crossing different functional areas, right? So in order to have that remit, it won't necessarily be all folks within different roles in HR. It might even expand to teams that have, some IT presence, some business presence, and we'll see all sorts of constructs as folks try to think about being more agile.
I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be a different world, and I think organizations are just going to be really need to be thoughtful and deliberate in their approach to making sure they equip these HR folks and cross-functional folks with the right skills they need to be effective here. So, and then the other thing I think we should touch on a little bit is around sourcing, right? I think from a sourcing perspective, we're seeing continued use of outsourcing, and certainly I don't see that going away in some of the tried and true areas where it's worked for years and years in benefits administration and things like that. But I think we're, on the whole, we're starting to see organizations apply a more selective approach when it comes to outsourcing. and just really utilizing outsourced service delivery where it adds the most value or addresses an internal skill gap. I think one of the areas where we've seen a lot of this is with AMS support. As companies move to new cloud platforms and they're making a choice, do we want to build this talent and skill set in house, or should we go with a provider who knows these tool set and does this well? So I think we'll be seeing more of that.
Why don't you touch real quickly on governance, and then we'll get to our poll results. I think we're going to run a little bit long today.
Yeah, sure. So a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about here. But yeah, finally, from a governance perspective, I think, just having that cohesive governance structure is really going to be critical for HR as they introduce all these new tools, new technologies, and new ways of working into the operating model. And so that, getting a good, solid, integrated governance framework in place is really going to position an organization to take meaningful action on some of these HR and cross-functional initiatives that they're going to be looking at. I think, we keep talking about cross-functional as it's kind of a key theme in all these pillars. And, I think it's just, highlighting that organizations are going to really need that strong alignment between HR, finance, and IT in order to really effectively meet the needs of the business and to monitor the needs of the business. So, the last piece of this is around metrics and measures, right? And I think HR will have an opportunity to rethink some of the things that they're measuring and some of those metrics and measures. And we'll have some new data at their disposal and should really be thinking about, as we address employee experience, let's put some measures in place around experience to see how we're doing with that. So, experience is one example, and I think there's going to be others that'll surface as well. So I think, there's a lot to talk about here. So, let's take a look at the poll and see what our audience thinks and where their minds are at.
There sure is. So let's flip to the poll. Last week we posted the question, what is the top priority for your HR organization over the next 1 to 3 years, with 4 choices, because that's what we get in the polls. And what you'll see is some results tied between reskilling HR resources and becoming an agile HR organization. Those two tied for top place, followed up closely by the optimizing the employee experience. So all themes that you touched on today. And interestingly enough, we didn't see as much focus on the analytics and decision-making support, which I do suspect will kind of come along after some of the big push in experience and reskilling in agile, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I thought was worth noting, and we called out here on the side, is that there are some interdependencies among the top 3 areas of focus in particular. And, if you think about it, being agile really does emphasize interactions and collaboration. And so it really impacts the way that HR works. And as a precondition to becoming, more agile and predictive, HR really has to have, in place those well-designed and well-managed employee experiences. So adopting those processes successfully does usually lead us right into reskilling the HR resources, right? They're all interconnected.
All together, yeah.
Yeah, so here's what we thought we'd do. We thought we'd lay out, you'll see across the bottom here that we're laying out a few of those key themes, and it feels like each one of those could be unpacked in a quick 10-minute segment. So that's what our plan is. We're going to look at reskilling HR next on our next time, and then we'll move to embracing agile, and then we'll go into optimizing the HR experience. And so that's you'll expect to see, in fact, right now you'll see posted a poll on reskilling, and we posted that on Mondays. We're trying to post those on Mondays, and we posted that poll, and we asked basically, what are the skills you would most like to develop in your business partners? So if you would please just go to the community and take 2 minutes, peek in and record an answer, so that we can let you know what the HR community of leaders is thinking. And then we'll queue up other polls accordingly and just unpack each of these topics a little bit more. Okay, so Kelly, thanks. That's pretty much all for today's Friday HR Peer and Market Pulse content, and we will see you next week or even sooner at the polls. Thanks, everybody.